Are you a gay man struggling with family members who just don't accept you as you are? Maybe they make passive aggressive comments, bring up religion at holidays, or maybe even outright refuse to acknowledge who you are. Setting boundaries with non-affirming family members can feel impossible, but I'm here to tell you that it's not. My name is Eric Feltus, and I have helped hundreds of gay men to become fully free from religious shame, to build their confidence, and to build their communities. If your family's lack of support has made you question your worth, your identity, or your right to take up space in this world as you are, then this video is for you. By the end, you'll know exactly how to set boundaries with family members who don't affirm you, without guilt, without shame, and without sacrificing your peace. But first, I want to tell you a story of a former client, Jake. When Jake came to me, he was feeling completely drained. He'd recently come out to his family, and while they didn't disown him, they made it painfully clear that they didn't approve of him. His mom would send him Bible verses about, quote unquote, God's plan for marriage. She would even send him information on conversion therapy camps. And his dad would completely change the subject anytime Jake mentioned dating. He would just get radio silent, ignore him, and change the topic. Family gatherings were exhausting. You know, he had to keep his mouth shut the whole time. And then when he left, he just felt bad about himself and exhausted. The family gatherings were full of side comments, awkward silences, and the constant expectation that if Jake just stayed quiet, things would just be fine. I remember once Jake said to me that he didn't want to cut his family out, but that every time he talked to them, he felt like he was suffocating, like he had to prove that he was still worthy of love. Just to pause real quick in this story, that conversation and those realizations of how he felt came from what we call the walk-away test. The walk-away test is when you walk away from someone and you get to decide, like, how do I feel? Like, check your body. How do I feel after I walk away from someone? Sometimes we just normalize feeling icky or crummy around certain people or apologetic for our existence. So after some diving into this with using the walk-away test, we realized that Jake was just not feeling good. So he and I worked together to define what Jake would and would not tolerate in his interactions with his parents. So he decided that if his mom ever brought up religion, he would calmly say, I love you. And also, I'm not discussing my sexuality with you, especially not in the context of religion. And he decided that if she kept pushing, he would end the conversation and walk away. He also set up a boundary with his dad that if his dad dismissed his dating life, that Jake would just no longer bring his father into his personal life at all. Now, I'm not going to lie. This was not easy for Jake at first. The first time that he set a boundary with his mom, he was incredibly uncomfortable and his mom got really defensive. And that's because this was a new dynamic for them. So I just want to pause and say, like, if this feels uncomfortable, that's not a sign that you're doing anything wrong. It might just be a sign that you're trying something new. And when he talked to his dad kind of rolled his eyes at him. But then something amazing happened. Jake started leaving conversations with his family feeling lighter during that walk-away test and not heavier. He realized that he didn't have to keep justifying himself to people who weren't willing to see him fully. And over time, his parents actually started to shift. I will say they weren't fully 100% accepting and affirming over time, at least not yet. But they did start to avoid certain comments because they knew Jake wouldn't tolerate them. And most importantly, Jake no longer felt trapped in their expectations. The truth is this: boundaries are not walls, they're doors. And you get to decide who has access to those doors and on what terms. So now I want to share with you some lessons that I've learned in my own life and also with the hundreds of men that I've worked with. In fact, here are 5 lessons about boundaries. Number 1, you don't owe anyone access to you. Just because someone is family doesn't mean they have an automatic right to your time, energy, or emotional labor. Number 2, You get to decide what's tolerable and what's not tolerable. Maybe you're okay with certain conversations, but not others. Maybe you're willing to visit, but won't tolerate misgendering or homophobic comments from your family. You get to define your own limits for you. Number 3, boundaries are about what you will do and what you will not do, or what you will accept and what you will not accept. And they're not about controlling others. So instead of saying, you need to stop bringing up my dating life, try, if you continue to bring up my dating life, I will leave the conversation. Lesson number 4, you can love someone and still set boundaries. Boundaries are not about punishment. They're about protecting your peace. And I would even go as far as to say that boundaries are necessary in order for us to freely love those around us. And number 5, it's okay if they don't like your boundaries. People who benefited from you not having boundaries are always going to push back, but that doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. And one more time, even if you feel uncomfortable, that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Discomfort can just be a sign that you're doing something differently. In summary, setting boundaries with non-affirming family members is about honoring yourself, not changing them. It's about protecting your energy, maintaining your self-respect, and deciding who gets access to your life. You don't have to tolerate disrespect, and you don't have to keep explaining yourself to people who refuse to listen. I want to leave you now with a final thought. You have more power than you realize, and your power is in your presence. Your family wants you around, and so you can use your presence as leverage in order to express your boundaries. These are my boundaries, and if these boundaries are crossed, then you don't get access to my presence anymore. I cannot emphasize this enough. You have more power than you realize. My hope is that you walk away from this video knowing that your peace is worth protecting. You don't have to earn your family's love by shrinking yourself. You are enough as and because of who you are. And so if this was helpful, or if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And if you need help navigating what it means to be happy as a gay man in a family that might not fully accept you, then click the link below to book a free discovery call with me, or DM me on Instagram the word help. And if you found this valuable, please like it and subscribe for more content. And I'll see you next time.